Hey there, and welcome to the Career Intelligence Podcast. One of my favorite things about hosting this podcast is that I get to connect with smart, interesting, funny people, and today's guest is no exception. I'm thrilled to welcome one of my favorite returning guests, Dr. Anna Stumpf. If you've heard Anna on the podcast before, you already know why I keep bringing her back. She has the rare ability to connect the dots between what's happening in education, what's happening in the labor market, and what young adults actually need to do to stand out right now without all the fluff. Anna is a leadership coach and educator who focuses heavily on emotional intelligence, how people lead, and how humans build trust and credibility at work, which, by the way, is becoming even more valuable now that AI has entered the picture. And also because, let's be honest, the early career job market has been a lot. Resumes are getting optimized by AI, applicant tracking systems are filtering by AI, bots are applying for people, and meanwhile, so many smart, capable young adults are doing everything right and still feeling stuck, overwhelmed, and like they're not enough. So in this conversation, Anna and I dig into a question we both keep coming back to. Are we witnessing the death of the resume economy and moving into a proof of work economy? In this episode, we talk about what portfolio really means. Hint, it's not just for artists. How to show you how you think, not just what you've done, and why the human premium is increasingly found in your process, judgment, curiosity, and reflection. There's a lot to unpack here, so let's jump right in. Hey there, and welcome to this very exciting episode of the Career Intelligence Podcast. I'm tickled, which is the word that comes to mind whenever I think of my guest today. Dr. Anna Stumpf. I mean, most of you, if you listen to either of my podcasts, have heard from her before, and which is why I keep bringing her back because she's so good. And if you're not following her on all the places, LinkedIn and other, why aren't you? You're missing out. But I just want to set up this episode because I'm super excited about this, and I've been thinking about this for a while, and Anna and I have sort of been brainstorming and kicking this idea around for, I don't know, more than a year probably. Mm-hmm. But it's no secret that the job market is a dumpster fire right now, particularly for early career. And we have been sort of circling around other ideas and other ways to help early career, but frankly, anybody in any stage of their career, how they can kind of break through the noise, stand out, differentiate themselves, and really communicate who they are, what they're about, what's important to know about them, their brand. And everybody says, well, you can do brand in your, LinkedIn profile. And that's true. But we still think there are better ways to do that. Entry-level jobs are shifting. We're seeing that daily. Employers say they want experience. Entry level now is 3 to 5 years experience. I mean, don't get me started on that soapbox because I will get up there in a heartbeat. Entry level is not 3 to 5 years experience. AI is changing that, what entry level means, but so is the market. Because there are so many people with experience, employers, I guess, feel like they can ask for that. And, in my coaching practice, I talk to young adults every day, and they feel stuck and overwhelmed and like they're not enough, and it's taking an emotional toll on them, and they need help. And parents, I, as a parent of young adults, as is my guest today, Dr. Anna, we see it in our own kids. What's to become of me? Where am I going to go? I did all the right things. I got the college degree, or I'm getting the college degree, and I'm trying to get an internship, but the numbers just don't line up. So many kids aren't getting internships. So what are we going to do about it? And I keep asking the question, are we witnessing the death of the resume economy and moving to a proof of work economy? I say yes. What do you say, Dr. Anna? And thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. And I say I hope so. I know we are. I just don't know how quickly it will come. And we need it to get here. Because resumes are performative. And right now it's the applicant tracking system AI against the applicant AI. We've got optimized resumes. And we've got applicant tracking systems and HR people that were not prepared for thousands of resumes because bots are applying for people to apply for one position and have the majority of them be the number one most optimized fit for the job. And then they interview those people and find out that they're not. And that is on the back of a very antiquated qualification game, right? What are your qualifications? And you alluded to the years of experience. I think the bigger plague is the game of credentials that we've played for 15 years, right?
Yep.
We've had an education system that was geared to get everybody to a four-year college, regardless of whether or not they really needed to be there. And then we had a labor market that said on the very first bullet of every list of qualifications, in the last however many years, we have found college degree, bachelor's degree, when it's not really needed for an entry-level role, right? So we were already excluding, in many, I know in the state I live in, only about 26% of the active workforce has a four-year degree. So we were already excluding those people from entry-level white-collar jobs, which is terrible. And then add on to this a very standardized education system, right? Where we are rubrics, standardized testing, high stakes testing these kids just to like death. And a real reduction, which we're bouncing back from. But if people have listened to me on your podcast in the past, I drive this home as well. We had a reduction over about 15 years, just a plummet of teenagers in the workforce, right? So we're younger generations who weren't, quote unquote, your only job is to go to school, right? Because that is a full-time job. If you're going to get into a good school, you got to take the AP classes. You got to be in clubs and organizations. You got to have the prime high school experience to get into the right college. And we as adults in society kind of took them out of the workforce. And so 3 to 5 years, if we go back to maybe how you and I grew up, or even like elder millennials, where they had part-time jobs and summer jobs, and school was only a part of what we were doing as a teenager, you could get there 3 to 5 years by the time you were 23. But we just kind of have not been doing that.
Yeah, agreed. And I see these stats all the time. It's the percentage of teens who are in the workforce continue. I think, to your point, I think it's bounced back a little bit, but I think it's holding steady. It's not growing.
Yeah. Well, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard for them to get these jobs, right? Because they have to go to school all day.
And there's other things, like, oh, God forbid they have a life, right? Like, play some sports, join a club, do all the other things. They want to hang out with their friends because they have to go to work.
Right. The other piece I'm going to talk about just for a minute, why I think this is important. And I think resumes exist to tell your story, right? To say what it is. And I've told my previous college students, and I tell adults, I tell everybody, your resume is the tool that you get to get you the interview. And then you get the interview to tell your story, to help the employer understand how you're the solution to their problem. Because every open job is a problem an employer needs solved. So your time in the interview is to say, here's how I've solved problems like this before. Here's how I've done this before. My past activity and performance is a predictor of my future activity and performance, right? And every hoop that an employer has you jump through, from your resume and the applicant tracking system to a screening interview to your first interview, is minimizing their risk. We do that as consumers. We get on and we look at other people's ratings and reviews of products, which is why referrals are key to getting an interview. All of that exists to mitigate the risk of the employer by making a good hire for efficiency and all the other reasons, right? Way we have to look at portfolios and proof of work is this is another way to mitigate that risk, to say, here's an example of how I worked. And the thing that is so important about portfolios, I'm probably jumping way ahead of where you wanted me to be right now, but it's not just a collection of the work I've done. It's my reflection and my description and how I describe that work, what I learned from it. And let's highlight failures. Let's highlight missed opportunities. Let's highlight the way that I learned from something. Let's highlight the way I would do this differently if I were going to do it today. Because it's that reflection, introspection, entrepreneurial mindset that makes you attractive and different to an employer. It's not just a collection of case studies that I did in my college class. It's not just a group project. It's not just a website I made, right? Like, it's the whole understanding, my thought process, how I did it, what I was thinking, who it was for. Like, explain it all.
Right. The thinking behind it.
Yes.
I have a brilliant coaching client right now who I'm going to share some of his stuff on LinkedIn because he's that good. Mm-hmm. But he came back to me one day recently and said, I've tweaked my resume a little bit. And I said, let me see. So he sent it to me. And an area that used to contain skills on his resume is now titled How I Work, which, by the way, listeners, feel free to steal this idea because here's what I love about this. Anybody can put Microsoft Excel, Python, whatever in their list of skills. But as an employer, that doesn't tell me what I need to know. That tells me maybe you took a class in it, maybe you've used it to create a spreadsheet. It doesn't tell me how you thought about it, how you used it, how you planned, how you executed. The how I work is so important, and that's what we're going to talk about too with regard to the portfolios. So, and I have a feeling this conversation is going to go on longer than my usual episodes, but whatever.
But to your point, though, like, this is where Gen Z doesn't like much social media, right? Because they feel like it is performative and it's curated and it's not authentic. Okay, like, true story, that is for sure. And I think they feel the same way about portfolios. Like, it's just showing off, or it's just but if you will not think about a portfolio as like a art gallery or a collection or a post or bragging, and you'll think about it in terms of how you applied something, applied thinking. These are just work samples that document my application of skills and what I know. Right? Like, that's all that is. That is proof of work. And we're all going to have to do that for an employer. We all have to do that in school. We all are doing that all along the way. It's just they have to have, and the problem when I say they, when I talk about Gen Z, they don't know what they don't know, right? The onus of this is really on education to understand, but you don't have a lot of educators that understand the professional world either, right? Like, so understanding how those things transfer. So my biggest concern is that students are doing a great job of, like, is this on the test? Can I see a rubric? Do you have an example? Oh, that wasn't assigned to me, so I'm not going to do it. And then they take that from high school to college, and then they take it from college to the business world. That's not going to work. Like, you are going to have to understand and study how to tell your story and that application of thinking to understand that's going to be the difference in how you get a job. And all it is, if you look at it, is just prep for the interview. Right. Prep for how you're going to answer the interview questions. Because what you would do if you had a solid portfolio, you'd eradicate the first half of the canned questions that they're going to ask you in an interview. Tell me about a time when you this. Tell me about
that's
a time
a really, really great point. Yeah, definitely. Because interview prep, I find, again, with a lot of my clients that they struggle with. Some don't do it at all, and it shows in the results of their interviews. But the ones that do, they struggle with it. And part of that is exactly what you're saying. Like, they have trouble articulating their story. You know, they do the STAR method, and that's fine as a format. But tell me what that was about. Help me understand how you got from point A to point B. And some might make the argument that, you know, the LinkedIn profile, the about section, right, is your ability to tell your story and, you know, explain or communicate your brand, which is great. But how many people actually read that? I don't know the answer to that. I'm sure there's data.
Well, I think it's after you're on the radar, right? After you're in contention for an interview, then I'm going to go look to get a real like affirmation of you are who you say you are. Right. You mentioned one of your clients. I'm going to tell an example of this in action that I experienced. And it was a few years ago during the Summer Olympics, I think, and the NFL Combine. And I had the opportunity to talk to a student who had graduated college majored in sports marketing or communication, something. Their dream job was to work in NFL in communications for an NFL team. So they were having trouble finding a job, and I ended up on a networking call with them. And we all know the feel-good stories that happen around the Olympics. And I happened to just be completely enamored at this time with football players in the NFL who had a significant other competing in the Olympics, and like how the team came off the field with Simone Biles, I think it was her fiance or husband at the time, to sit in the team room and watch Simone compete. Mm-hmm. There was another, I can't remember the young lady, but I think he played maybe for the Detroit Lions, and his spouse was a runner in the track and field. Mm-hmm. And they show this amazing video. I get goosebumps just thinking about it, right? So I'm like, this young lady wants to work in sports marketing, communication, social media. So I said, have you created any content around the Olympics or the NFL Combine or the combination of the two? And she looked at me like, what on earth are you talking about? And I said, one thing I used to tell my students was, why would I let you come work for my brand and tell my story if you don't work for your own brand and tell your own story? If you want to work in this space, start to post content. She thought that sounded like the most cringe idea on the planet. Mm-hmm. Why would I do work that wasn't assigned to me? Why would I create work and post it when I don't? She just couldn't wrap her mind around that being an opportunity. Mm-hmm. And I thought, if you did that and posted it, even if you didn't go viral, and that was the thing, she thought she was supposed to go viral. She thought she was supposed to get job offers because she wrote like a little story and whatever. And I was like, no, this is a breadcrumb trail that you're going to leave behind when you apply for a job and somebody comes to look to see what you're about. They're going to find this content and they're going to say, oh my goodness, she's already doing the job we want to hire her for. Could not convince her of it. And you know what? That is not her fault.
It's not her fault.
Not once through K through 12 was she probably put in a position to do anything that wasn't assigned to her. And not one time at a 4-year college, where she went, by the way, was a nationally ranked communications program. Not one time in that program did anybody suggest any extra work or a portfolio or anything like this. So the fact that she's out of college for a year and some old lady gets on a call with her and suggests this, she just thinks, oh my God, you're the weirdest person I've ever talked to, and gets on with her life, right?
Yeah.
She's a product of the system. And our systems are broken. For these
Agreed. Well, and we talk about this a lot, you and I, about sort of the break or the disconnect between higher ed and the work world, right? More than half of students come out not knowing how to articulate what they've learned and how that translates into a career, right? Which again is why interview prep is so important. But beyond that, they don't understand that you can't just talk about a project that you did and that the employer is going to connect the dots.
Right.
So yeah, that's a great story. And again, I agree with you. I don't think that she should have been expected to understand that because nobody taught her that.
No, and you are evaluated from the time you're 5 until the time you graduate college on your product, your assessment scores, your assignment, your whatever paper you wrote, you are looked at for your product. The problem is nobody in education today is experienced in a 2026 real world professional situation where the product at the entry level is being done by AI. Mm-hmm. And we still have a lot of companies out there that aren't leveraging AI, but they're going to. Mm-hmm. And that is going to deteriorate entry-level roles as we know them. What these young people would come out and quote unquote cut their teeth on as they finish developing their frontal lobe and get experience and learn the nuances of being in a professional world, those entry-level roles are being done by AI, and it's much more efficient and fiscally responsible for a company to let that happen. What these young people have to make an astronomical jump from product to process, understanding strategically what the process is and where you can leverage technology, where a human has to be in, and where we're headed. No, we're not teaching them that.
That is a soundbite right there that I might have to clip and share, because you're right. It's an astronomical jump.
And we are putting the responsibility of getting them across that great divide on corporate America. Mm-hmm. Corporate America hasn't figured this out, and they quite honestly don't think it's theirs to do. Mm-hmm. But until it all catches up, and where it will catch up is when we have the first major wave of reskilling. As we continue to see these massive layoffs and we continue to see the extinction of current roles, and we create new roles as an evolution, and then we think, oh, we've got to take all of these people and reskill them to get them into these roles, that will indirectly help Gen Z and Gen Alpha get reskilled. But nobody's out there doing that for them right now, because, to your point, the lack of cohesiveness between higher ed or even K-12 and apprenticeships, or higher ed and the professional world, they're not working together to build those bridges to understand, oh, here's where higher ed left off, here's where we need to pick up, right?
I think some of those bridges are starting to be made in what I'm reading and seeing and hearing. But allegedly, we all know it moves at a glacial pace. Anything related to higher ed. Sorry, I'm not bashing higher ed. I'm just saying change does not come quick or easy.
No.
Okay, so let's talk about this, because I want to give some really helpful, actionable advice for those young adults who really need to be hearing this. And parents, if you're listening to this, please share with your young adults. I know they don't like to listen to podcasts. Even my kids don't listen to podcasts. But if you can even just get them to, we'll put the show notes and the transcript online. Just, this is really important information that I think they need to hear.
And it will not be assigned to them. Right?
Yes, it's not assigned.
It's going to have to be extra. It's going to have to be enough of a pain point. And the problem is, when it becomes the pain point, it's too late. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. And I tell this to working adults. I've said this for 15 years. You should always be resume ready. Mm-hmm. Just because you have a great job that you love right now doesn't mean like you can't prepare your resume and be ready if you need to hand it off. And that always happens. Somebody is miserable, they get laid off, and then they're like not in the good headspace to be creative, to build, to do those things. So do it when you don't need it.
True.
Do it when you don't need it.
True. So let's back up for a second, because I'll be honest, even me, maybe 5 or 10 years ago, if you had said to me portfolio, my mind would immediately have thought artist, digital graphic designer, whatever it might be, right? Something very creative, something very visual, right? Exactly. Yeah. Art intensive. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about, it's not just for artists, it's for thinkers. So anybody who has anything to communicate, which is just about everyone, about their process, how they think, how they work, what they do. Now, granted, that portfolio, the portfolio of a graphic designer will look very different than an engineer or a computer science major or even a finance major. Mm-hmm. But there is an application for all of those. So let's talk about that. What might a portfolio look like for a business major or a marketing major? And you talked a lot about that with the client or the young woman that you spoke to. Mm-hmm. Samples of writing about things that matter, things that are timely and relevant.
Okay, let me put my professor hat on for a minute. And I think I've probably told this story on your podcast before. It's one that I famously repeat over and over and over again, because I used to teach marketing. And there was a brilliant professor at Harvard in the 60s, Theodore Levitz. And he talks about the fact that consumers don't want a product or a service. They have a problem to solve. So when a customer buys a drill, they're actually buying a hole in the wall, right? So we tend to, as like college graduates looking for jobs, entry-level people, applicants, whatever, we tend to come from an applicant standpoint, where we really need to talk about the holes we've put in the wall, not the fact that we're a deluxe drill, right? Not about the fact that we come with all the drill bits and we come with all the battery replacements or what. We need to talk about the holes we've put in the wall, the problems that we have solved in the past, the problems we hope to solve, the value we've created. Well, what if I haven't done that? Well, that's okay. Like, you may have been, you mentioned finance. You may have been like running an investment portfolio, or you may have been running a simulation. If you had hundreds of thousands of dollars, what you would invest in, right? And you can talk about that. Don't talk about like, I took X number of dollars and here's what I invested in and here's what the return was. Because they can teach you that, right? Mm-hmm. They want to know, what selection process did you use? What did you not? How did what you chose not to interview or invest in, how did that perform? And how will that guide your next, right? You want to get into like the value creation, the lessons that you learn. To your point on your young person's resume, how I learned to work or how I work, how I learn best, right? Like you want to talk about like the applied skills, the thinking, the process, and then the one thing that has been nearly impossible to teach. And I don't know why we're so bad at this, but I didn't realize it until I started teaching at the graduate level, adults especially. And my husband teaches 7th graders. He'll tell you, we're just never good at it in K through 12, reflection. Reflect on it, right? Here's what I would do differently. Here's how I learned prior knowledge. Here's what I felt like worked. Here's what really was hard for me. And here's what I still don't know after doing this, right? The problem is, then how do I take all of that, the applied skills, the thinking in the process, the reflection, all of those things, and then put that in a package where somebody's going to take a minute to read it? Oh gosh, there's a lot to this. And I know when young people come up against friction, when they come up against something where they're going to walk away from it. Right?
I would add one more. I'd add one more piece to that too. And I encourage my clients when they go into interviews, especially if they're doing the STAR method. I like the Carl method because it has an L on the end for learn. What did you learn? What would you do different? Even if it was successful, I'm sure you learned something. And I'm sure whatever you resolved, whatever action you took and resolved something.
I'll tell you, historically, this is why we appreciate college students. It's not because we think they got super trained up for our entry-level position. It's we know they were somewhere 4 years and they were continuing to grow up, that they were in a world where they had to learn, right? And to adapt and mature. And then like the learning to learn, I think has always been important, but it is going to be a superpower going forward.
Yep.
Because people who didn't go to college, people who went to college 15 years ago, people who laser focused on one, like think about if you were a traditional computer science student, you had to pick that path in like 8th grade.
Yeah.
Math and science and computer science, and you went down a specific path. If you were an engineering major, you didn't get a lot of career exploration. If you took 4 or 5 AP classes in high school, which they're taking that in a year, you didn't get electives, right? If you were in some rigorous thing, you did not get to go explore. So you learned how to learn what you needed to learn. But the learning to learn, I keep getting redundant and repetitive, but the learning to learn is our superpower going forward because of all the reskilling we're going to have to do.
Absolutely.
I mean, like, it's going, so even a portfolio that says, here's how I learned or what I learned or what I wish I could have learned, like any of that is going to be important. And it's going to show that you're at least thinking about that.
And we're starting to see that more I've been keeping an eye on job descriptions and all the jobs that my clients apply to. And we're starting to see just a small pivot in that direction, that skills required, somebody who's, learns quickly and wants to learn, somebody who's curious. I've been using the ABC acronym, always be curious, because every possible thing that you can learn and absorb and think about is going to benefit you in some way because it's going to help that thought process. But I think we're starting to see that. And, there's a joke, but it's not a joke. Humanities are making a comeback. And it's true because AI cannot replace the people skills. No. You know this, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but empathy and all the people side of things. So
I know we're way off topic and way out of time. Another piece of this that I have found interesting when I have gone into classrooms, high school and college in the last few years, is the number of young people that have a gig or are doing something.
Yep.
And they don't quite understand the superpower of that, like what's so important about that. It's just like your young man who built something on GitHub to solve his own problem and then just shared it freely with the world, right? Like, that's amazing. The things that they can do now, the entrepreneurial spirit. I have a connection here in town. I had lunch with her a few months ago. Her 13-year-old started a nail business out of her kitchen. She's like full on nail salon, right? Because it's something she enjoyed doing, and she started doing it for people in the neighborhood, and they started telling people or whatever. And I was just like, your 13-year-old is leaps and bounds ahead of some college graduates right now. Like, so we've got to make and embrace a space to celebrate this and to lean into it, right? Like, and it doesn't mean like she started her nail business in her mom's kitchen to get money to save up to buy a car in 3 years, or she goes to college, right? It can be all that. It can be all that, because that's how life's going to be. And maybe, maybe she just goes to get an associate's degree so she continue to have gigs and her own business or whatever. Like, maybe, I don't know. But we have access to more information, more data than we know what to do with. So if it's in the absence of information that caused me to go to college, maybe it's the plethora of information that causes people to take a non-traditional path, right? I don't know how that works, but everybody's journey is going to be unique. I think the real proof is in, can you tell your story? Can you explain your why? It's not right or wrong. It's just why.
Yeah, absolutely. Back on the High School Hamster Wheel podcast before, where you can find multiple episodes with Anna, by the way, I interviewed a young woman, 14 years old, started a Pinterest business, was creating pins for people because she loved to create. She was very, she was very artistic, and I interviewed her, and it was the love of it, right? Because she wanted to, not because she was getting a grade. I mean, yes, she got paid, good for her. But we see that more and more. And gig work, we're going to talk about that today too, because that is becoming more and more prevalent, particularly with the younger generations that are just like, I want to make my own rules. I want to make my own schedule. I want to do the work I want to do. And frankly, I can't blame them.
I was going to say, same girl, same.
Yeah. So
I could have done that.
I'm wondering if some listeners, particularly if there are young adult listeners, if they're now scratching their head going, okay, so what do I do with this now? Right? Like, this is all well and good. Thank you.
Right.
But
okay, so case in point, I would not feed AI my resume, job description, case study, assignments, bit of collateral that I have or artifacts that I have and say, create my portfolio. I would not use it for output. I would upload the job description, I would upload my resume, and I would upload several work samples. And I would say, if you were the creator of the job description and you saw my resume, in what way could I articulate, and what would you need to know about these work samples that would compel you to think I was the right choice to interview for the job? And let AI ask you questions, give you a guidance, have it be a partner, not a replacement.
Right.
Like it's a resource. You don't want it to create for you.
Well, and I think something that you just said really is worth noting separately. So adding the job description, and we do this for a lot of things. So we do it to prepare for the interview. We do it sometimes to, make sure the resume is aligned. But I agree, and I'm curious to hear what you say about this too, that portfolios should be targeted as well. Because if it's just a generic portfolio, here's what I did and here's how I did it, if I'm the hiring manager or recruiter and it doesn't speak to me and tell me the value you're going to bring to our company, to our role, to our organization, don't make me connect the dots.
Right.
So what do you think that includes? So if I'm 20 something and I'm building my portfolio, let's say I'm a English major, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm going for a job in communications. I want to target that, right? So if the role is communications coordinator, I need to think about, of all the things I've done, even if it's not in a communications class. I mean, communications is sort of a slam dunk because we communicate everywhere. But if you think about those other portfolios where you have to kind of extract those things out. And I think that's where the tricky part is. And by the way, I help clients do that, but extracting those things out and delivering them in a way that tell your story. It's like somebody said in a meeting I was in, it's like, take the reader or the viewer of the portfolio, take them on a journey.
Right. Okay, so 2 points about that. Transferable skills. You can't, as an English major, sit down and use English major terms or classes, the English terms, and sell that to a communications manager to be like a communication specialist, right? You have to use the vernacular of the role. And if you haven't been in that role, if you haven't done an internship there, if you haven't been in the business world, you don't understand the words that they use, that's going to be a limitation in you telling the story of your transferable skill. The other thing, and I cannot drive this home enough, and if I could get young people to understand it, I think I would solve their problems for the next 20 years of their life, because I can't get adults to understand it very well. There is a brilliant man wrote a book called Story Brand, Donald Miller. And his way of communication is to build the character, like the hero of the story. The problem is, when we start talking to young people, and I've seen students as young as 12 years old have to create a resume. Let that land on you for a minute, right? This is why these young people are very apathetic about resumes. This young lady was creating a resume at the age of 12 for going to junior biz camp or biz world or whatever, right? Junior achievement. That's performative. That's performative. That is not like, and I'm trying to show off, which is why Gen Z gets the ick about LinkedIn and everything else. They feel like it's inauthentic. They feel like it's showing off. But if you approach your portfolio, your resume, your interview questions and everything else as the guide and not the hero of the story, the hero of the story is the client that you helped. The hero of the story is the customer you're going to serve. The hero of the story is the product or, the output that you did. You're just the guide. And if you show that in a way and tell your story that is very much, and as an English major, I should be able to do this, right? It's a point of view for the story. If I approach my whole portfolio package interview, my whole existence to be in that communication role for your company is the guide to get your story to the customer, or your guide to get your story to your employees if you're in internal comms, whatever that is. You're not the hero. Stop trying to be. Start showing the value that you add, the unique creativeness that you bring to that role through your transferable skills, but how you're doing your work.
Again, soundbite right there. You just drove that home.
Yeah, drop a lot of mics on these podcasts, Betsy. You know that.
You do. You're my mic dropping friend.
Yeah.
So let's think about wrapping this up. We could go on, and we will do more episodes because we just do.
History has shown that's we will be back.
Past behavior.
Yeah.
But I want to kind of wrap this all up because we have gone off on some tangents, which we do. But here's the through line. The through line is it's about your story in your portfolio, but you're not the hero. So some people that might take a little bit to wrap their minds around, and I get that. So to your point, I wouldn't call you the narrator, but you're telling your story with the result being, here's the value I bring. So I think that's really important. It's not a me, look at me, look what I can do. It's a look what I can bring to you. Is that the differentiator?
Yeah, and I'm sitting here thinking about my dissertation, through my doctorate. I had to have a hypothesis, and then I had to go do research and prove or disprove my hypothesis. So if you read a job description, if you're that English major and you think, I want to work in this communications role, I think that I have the skill set to be in that role. Now, this takes a little more work than the average bear wants to do. But if you look at what they're looking for, what the employer has said, here are the gaps we have, here's what we need for you to come in and solve our problem. Your job is to sit there with each of those and think, what have I done that translates into that? What's an example of when I've done that? I've done something like this. Oh, you want me to be able to tell you a story? I've written thousands of stories, right? Oh yeah, I can do all of this. Let me put together, and it could be for this job, it could be any number of jobs that land in the same field. Let me show you all of my experiments, and let me show you how I can prove my hypothesis that I'm the solution for your problem. Boom, right? Whether it's an experimental approach, research approach, whether it's curiosity, or whether it's you're the guide to the hero of the story, whatever that is, whatever mindset you have to have. Don't take yourself out of the running, right? Don't remove yourself from it because you don't think that they will think that. Go out to show the proof. And that's what a portfolio will do. That's what you do. Even if, and I had an example, like at a young man several years ago interviewing for a job at like a very well-known tech company. And he did not get chosen for the job, but they called him the next day and said, we did not realize you had customer service experience because you did not put customer service role on your resume. That's because he didn't make the leap that like a major well-known global company would think his part-time job during college at Lowe's was important. But every experience he's ever had was who he is today, but also like mattered. So they found that when they went to look at his LinkedIn, that he had a part-time job in the plumbing department at Lowe's, like when he was in college. And they said, because of that, we want to have you interview for a different role. And they hired him and he's worked there 8 years.
Wow.
So you don't take anything out of the running. You just figure out if you don't want to put it on the resume, put it on the LinkedIn, put it in the portfolio, put it somewhere. Don't ever leave it off. And make sure it fits into the narrative. If he'd have paid better attention to what they were really looking for and asking for, and maybe the job description was bad. I don't know why it didn't make the cut. Probably because he discounted it. Everything you've done is somehow, it's part of who you are. It's a part of your story. And try and really, and that's where I think AI and like other people's experience, and if you have other people look at your stuff and they say, oh, my company would love to know that you did this, right? Like those things make the cut. And we're talking about a lot of work, a lot of intention, a lot of prep. And that's where we're going to really say, it might not even be the quality of the portfolio. It may just be the fact you took the time and energy and intention to put it together that's going to impress them.
Totally. We are going to do another episode because we're not done. Right. I do want to just put two quick things out there before we end. One is other people listening to this because we've talked, and listen, my jam is young adults and early career. That's what I do. It's who I am. But everything on this podcast, the Career Intelligence Podcast, our intention is that there's value in it for everyone who listens. And I would say that's true for this episode in particular, too. I mean, I don't care where you are in your career. Your proof of work is going to become more and more important. Mark this date and time that I said that, because maybe I'm nuts, but I don't think I am. I think there's so much noise in the market from AI and just stuff that doesn't matter. And it's getting harder and harder for employers to discern one candidate from the next. And I think the better you can tell your story and the more you can bring forth your brand and who you are and how you work, I don't care where you are in your career, that's going to be valuable.
Agree.
And I think the other people I sort of want to address on this episode are parents. And I always do that because I look through that parent lens because I am one of you. I'm a parent of young adults. And Anna and I have talked about this on multiple episodes about not being a helicopter, all the things. But at the end of the day, they're our kids. We worry about them. We love them. We want to help them. But we have to let go of some stuff that we've been hanging on to for a long time. We didn't do it that way. That portfolios weren't a thing when I was getting up, all those things. We have to let go of that and let them just redefine their path in the way they define it. Gig work is another example. I'm seeing more and more young adults who are saying, I don't want a 9-to-5, Monday through Friday corporate job. I want to, what do they call it? Job stacking. I want to build my career the way I want to build it. And I know we need to let them try. And anybody who's listening, if you're a parent, as Anna said, ask more questions.
Yeah.
Don't make assumptions. If your young adult comes to you and says, here's the path I want to take, or here's the path I don't want to take, before you reply, before you convince, before you persuade, start asking questions. Get curious about it, because they may take you on a journey that you never thought you'd go on with them, and you might be surprised.
Yeah, I think back to my own life of my dad when I was in my 30s and left Walmart and became a teacher. When I called to tell him, he hung up on me. And when I called him back and said, we got disconnected. And I mean, the man hadn't paid a bill for me or been responsible for me for like over a decade. And he said, what am I supposed to tell my friends? What's wrong with you? Like, what are you doing? Like, he just couldn't imagine. He wanted me to go to work, that old boomer mentality, get to work for a good company, take care of the... No, that's not how the world worked, even then. Right? There's 2 books by Jonathan Haidt, if you will read them. His older work is The Coddling of the American Mind. Oy vey. That's a real mirror for parents. And this current one, The Anxious Generation.
Oh, yeah.
Who's making these kids anxious? It isn't each other. I can promise you that, right? It's the way we love on them, which is, you can look at every generation. This is how we do it. But yes, please understand, these young people have a much faster changing world. They have access to more information than some of us had the first 40 years of our life. They're going to be okay if they go to a 4-year. If they don't go to a 4-year, they're going to have other ways to learn. They're going to have other on-ramps and off-ramps. And we're not preparing them for the job anymore, because the job is going to change and be gone and transform. Like, we're preparing them for a world we literally, I don't care how smart you are. I don't care what kind of cool job you have as a parent. You are preparing these young people that you're raising for a world you can't even imagine. Right. None of us can. So there's no right or wrong. If they make a decision, they're going to make it right. If it's not the right decision now, it will be made right in some point. They're going to be okay.
Right.
Ooh, I wish I'd listened to myself, because I'm not doing a great... This is a Herculean effort as a parent all the time.
Same.
All the time.
And even harder when they become young adults. But I think the 2 things that I keep driving home to are the skills our kids need are adaptability and resilience. Because over the next 1, 5, 10 or more years, we're just going to see change and change and change. And it's coming quicker and quicker all the time. And while you can't know everything, you can be prepared to pivot and to adjust and to learn what you need to learn. And that's what employers want to see. Are you going to be somebody who comes in who can do the job today, but can adapt and learn and grow within the job so you can do the job in a year or 2 or 10?
Yeah. Yeah. All of that.
Once again, thanks for being here.
I love the work that you do, and I love the fact that you keep digging and finding ways and catching these trends, but maybe before or after they're, important enough that it makes a difference, to just have the exposure to this information, to the idea of it. Because for far too long, we have sat and listened to the person in the front of the room, and they unfortunately don't have all the answers for what's going on in the world. But together we've got more options and opportunities and lenses. And what you and I talked about here today isn't perfect for every young person or everybody, but it's going to hit some, and it's going to be important. So I love the fact that you do this. I'll come every time you ask me.
Oh, all right. Good. I'll ask you again. And we don't have all the answers, but I live and breathe this stuff every day, and I'm so passionate about it. And I'm going to keep sharing ideas and thoughts and have on smart people like you to have these conversations. So thanks for being here. You're the best.
Thanks for what you do.
So can you tell that I'm passionate about this topic? I know it's written all over my microphone, but seriously, this is one of those episodes I want to dig in again and again, because there were so many mic drop moments. Here's my biggest takeaway. In a market full of noise, the winners are going to be the people who can show proof of work and proof of thinking. Resumes still matter, LinkedIn still matters, but the differentiator is increasingly this. Can you show how you solve problems, how you learn, how you communicate value, and how you work? If you're listening thinking, okay, I get it, but I don't know how to turn my experience into something that actually stands out, that's exactly what I do in my coaching work. I help early career professionals and career pivoters translate their experience into a clear, confident story, build proof of work assets, portfolio projects, case studies, work samples, how I work statements, align their resume and LinkedIn to the roles they actually want, and prep for interviews so they can articulate their value, not just list their skills. If you want help building your proof of work and standing out in the evolving job market, you can learn more and schedule a free discovery call at betsyjewellcoaching.com. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you'd follow the podcast, leave a review, and share it with a friend. Or send it to a young adult or a parent who needs to hear it. It truly helps more people find the show. All links and resources we mentioned today are in the show notes. Be sure to check those out. Thanks for listening to the Career Intelligence Podcast. Until next time, stay curious, stay connected, and keep building your career intelligence.